Jeffrey Epstein worked closely with Israel on different military contracts, their intel agencies, Mossad, and so forth.
I've been reliably told you're anti-Semitic if you say that.
Well, the MAGA Civil War is officially here now. I've been making videos about this topic for quite a few days. I've even lost subscribers over it because people didn't want to hear it. It's a multifaceted, fractured Republican Party with multiple different issues happening all at the same time. Previously, I've talked about how there's a massive generational divide occurring right now that is fracturing the Republican Party. But now we have a new update into the MAGA Civil War. I am withdrawing my support and endorsement of Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene of the great state of Georgia. Over the past few weeks, despite my creating record achievements for our country, including a total and complete victory on the shutdown, closed borders, low taxes, no men and women's sports, or transgender for everybody, including DEI, stopping Biden's record-setting inflation, biggest regulation cuts in history, stopping 8 wars, including our military being respected by every country in the world, having trillions of dollars, record-setting invested in the USA, and having created the hottest country anywhere in the world from being a dead country just 12 months ago, and so much more. All I see wacky Marjorie do is complain, complain, complain. She has told many people that she is upset that I don't return her phone calls anymore. Trump in that tweet would then go on to state that the great people of Georgia should consider primarying Marjorie Taylor Greene and kicking her out of her current political position of that state. And he didn't stop there. There's another politician, a Republican, who has also caught Trump's attention. Did Thomas Massey, sometimes referred to as Rand Paul Jr., because of the fact that he always votes against the Republican Party, get married already? Boy, that was quick. No wonder the polls have him at less than an 8% chance of winning the election. Anyway, have a great life, Thomas. His wife will soon find out she's stuck with a loser. Now, of course, this was a low blow from President Trump to Thomas Massey, whose wife tragically passed away suddenly just the other year. He got remarried. And so it's kind of interesting to see Trump throwing that kind of shade at another politician, which really does indicate that Trump is beyond pissed at Thomas Massey and definitely beyond pissed at Marjorie Taylor Greene, who many have looked at as the mother of MAGA in some ways. She's a little wishy-washy sometimes, but she has stood her ground when it comes to MAGA overall. So what is causing this? Why is Trump furious with Thomas Massey and Marjorie Taylor Greene? And the bottom line is, I believe it comes down to two main things, but I also think that there's this third false flag kind of thing that people are pointing to when it comes to all of this. And that would be the H-1B visas, a topic I'm going to make a whole video about because, man, am I disgusted with that. And so, quite frankly, is the rest of America after witnessing that devastating interview with Laura Ingraham where Trump kind of implied that Americans just don't have the talent to do what is necessary, so we must import foreign workers. Not long after that interview, Marjorie Taylor Greene would then go on the news and talk about how she's proposing new legislation to stop the H-1B visas in their tracks.
My dear fellow Americans, I'm introducing a bill to completely eliminate the H-1B visa program, which has been riddled with fraud and abuse and has been displacing American workers for decades. There will only be one exemption in my bill, and it will allow for a $10,000 per year cap on visas issued to medical professionals like doctors and nurses who provide life-saving care to Americans. However, even this $10,000 per year cap will be phased out over 10 years to allow us time to build our own pipeline of American doctors and physicians. My bill will also restore the original intent of the visa, for it to be temporary. These visas were intended to fulfill a specialty occupational need at a given time. People should not be allowed to come and live here forever. We thank them for their expertise, but we also wish them well so they may return to their home country. My bill will take away the pathway to citizenship, forcing visa holders to return home when their visa expires.
If you agree with legislation like that, please be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to this channel because that is the kind of legislation that I advocate for as an American advocate. We must turn into America first and America only. It is the only path forward, and the H-1B visas are inherently, in my opinion, un-American. So I was actually thrilled with Marjorie Taylor Greene for doing this. Trump very likely wasn't. But this, in my opinion, is sort of the false flag that people are pointing to when it comes to why Trump is turning on Marjorie Taylor Greene. Because despite the fact that this current Trump that we're seeing on TV nowadays is almost unrecognizable in some ways compared to his 2016 self, where he literally ran off of deporting illegal immigrants, building a border wall, putting America first, even doing so last year in 2024, compared to the Trump we're seeing now in 2025, where he's talking about Americans not being talented enough, and he's talking about how we need to import more foreign workers who have the talent needed to at least train Americans. Combine that with the fact that he's talking about how he supports an influx of Chinese students, and then he's throwing us some weird bone that nobody wants in the form of 50-year mortgages because we can't afford homes anymore and the housing market is overinflated due to, in part, an influx of illegal immigrants. I want to point this out right here. Thomas Massey co-sponsored the Fairness for High-Skilled Immigrants Act back in 2019, I believe it was, which increased the per-country cap on family-based immigrant visas from 7 to 15%, more than doubling it. And so Trump is mad at both Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massey, and these two have very different views when it comes to the H-1B visa. That's why I'm telling you that's the false flag kind of thing that people are pointing to when it comes to why Trump is pissed with them. It can't be the case. Both of these politicians actually disagree with each other in technicality. Thomas Massey seems to be much more pro-immigration, in all honesty, than Marjorie Taylor Greene does overall. Here's, in truth, one of the largest factors playing into all of this, in my opinion, based off the extensive research that I've done over the past 2 days when it comes to this split in the MAGA party. This is an interview with Thomas Massey where he is speaking a lot of uncomfortable truths, perhaps, that President Donald Trump is not going to be a fan of, nor are a good portion of boomers, in my opinion, because this, again, does come back to a generational divide that we're seeing, and this time it's not wealth-based.
What he promised us was we would put America first. And I think there are still voices in this administration. You've still got J.D. Vance. You've still got Tulsi Gabbard. You still, RFK Jr., you still got calmer heads that could prevail.
They were not persuasive in this case, clearly.
Well, somebody was persuasive. AIPAC is very persuasive. For instance, the Israeli lobby in Congress. If you look at my colleagues' feeds now, they all look the same. They're all tweeting the same message that we've got to support Israel and we've got to do this.
Israel. This is a topic that I've been mostly neutral on up until the last couple of weeks, where I've really seen a lot of hellfire being spread all over social media, especially X, when it comes to this topic. I've always been in semi-pro favor of Israel, borderline Israel neutral. And now it just seems like this topic is blowing up all over the place. And I've kind of taken a backseat approach to it. I've been looking carefully to see how this all unfolds. And I'm truthfully starting to formulate a very strong opinion on this topic overall. It's very interesting. And when it comes to Marjorie Taylor Greene, it turns out she has perhaps an even more radicalized stance than Thomas Massey does on this.
Jeffrey Epstein worked closely with Israel on different military contracts, their intel agencies, Mossad, and so forth.
I've been reliably told you're anti-Semitic if you say that.
Yeah, that's like the thing, but MAGA cannot override MAGA. And I can criticize any foreign country that I want to because I'm an American and I have free speech.
MAGA being Make Israel Great Again.
Yes. I definitely am concerned about any foreign country's influence on our own, especially when it comes to members of Congress.
You got some agreement out there.
And that is what we should be doing. No more foreign aid, no more foreign wars, no more sending your monies overseas. We need to fix our health insurance. We need to work on the cost of living. It is extremely expensive.
Yep.
And the most important thing we can do is continue to create a future for our children.
Now, for me, I actually consider it a great shame that I had not seen that interview sooner, because that is exactly the messaging that the current Trump administration needs, and that's been the messaging of this channel right here over the past couple of days. And one of the major things I've pointed to when it comes to why this MAGA Civil War is happening, the generational divide between millennials and Zoomers and boomers, and then the poor Gen Xers that are caught somewhere in the middle. I don't think they know what side to be on. But it all comes down to cost of living, in my opinion. And as a result of the cost of living being so outrageous still, And yeah, Trump, he's controlled the inflation. Good for him. Good for him. We're certainly nowhere near the 9.1% inflation levels that we saw under peak Joe Biden. Like, this is not Trump's fault, but at this point, we are now closing in on the 11-month mark of Trump's presidency. It's time for him to take responsibility. It's time for him to focus on what really matters. We're less than a year out from midterms, and a bag of Flaming Hot Cheetos is still close to $6, and we're talking a small bag. And that's just one of the items I've noticed. Cereal's overpriced. I mean, you know, and go RFK on me. Well, you shouldn't be eating that food anyway. It's really bad for you. It contains yellow 5 and red 40. And okay, I get it, and I actually agree with that. But chicken's not cheaper. Beef's more expensive. Everything is up in price. Or at the very least, if it's not up in price, it hasn't gone down in price, which was one of the major campaign promises for Trump. And the thing is, boomers are more detached from that reality. They may notice the prices are higher, but they're also not struggling the same way because they've had an entire lifetime to save up resources and build wealth, whereas Zoomers are just getting started and millennials never got a chance to get started. Millennials still can't own a home. And then you get the messaging of this, which I'm starting to agree with more. Why are we funding these countries in their wars? What if we just took a step back, see what happens, save the money? And Marjorie Taylor Greene has gone scorched earth on X, posting this photo, drawing a comparison to herself with Lindsey Graham, who Trump continually endorses as part of MAGA, and who many Republicans know as an absolute neocon warmongerer, who lives part-time in Ukraine pretty much and endorses foreign aid to all of the countries that are just drying up our funds and diverting Trump's attention away from the domestic issues that actually matter, like cost of living, affordability, and the housing market. According to the Liberty score here, Marjorie Taylor Greene scores a 100% A. But she puts in the photo that she's called a rhino by Trump, as opposed to Lindsey Graham, who literally scores an F and gets a 43 on his Liberty performance score. He's deemed MAGA. And I do want to point something out here, because currently I would actually argue on behalf of Marjorie Taylor Greene and actually on behalf of Thomas Massey. And I've been very outspoken against both of those people in the past. I do think Marjorie Taylor Greene has a tendency to go off the walls. I think she's very wishy-washy, and I'm going to show you that in a second. And when it comes to Thomas Massey, he has infuriated me in the past for voting no a lot of times against Trump's agenda, and in large part an agenda that I agree with. However, currently in 2025, I gotta tell you, I am more behind Thomas Massey and Marjorie Taylor Greene than I ever have been before. This is also a truth that might make a lot of people uncomfortable, but I'm gonna point to it nevertheless. Both these people who are coming under fire from President Donald Trump have received $0 in AIPAC donations. And that's why I think right now what we're witnessing in this MAGA Civil War, this fracture of the Republican Party, is a split. And it's a split that is going to possibly force sides. It could result in catastrophic performance in the midterms and could put the 2028 election in jeopardy. So I would be lying to you if I said that I wasn't nervous about what's happening right now. But until MAGA and President Trump wake up and shake off this tone-deaf approach to politics, this boomer approach to politics, they're only looking at it from one side of the angle, and Trump has the nerve to go and tweet about how you're not a real Republican if you stand for this or that, or I know MAGA better than anyone. What people are asking for in record numbers is America first. That's what it comes down to. But that's just quite frankly not what we seem to be getting. And to make matters worse, President Donald Trump doubles down continuously on what I believe was his first major mistake as president back in May, the Epstein Files. This was a recent Truth Social post from him just 3 days ago. The Democrats are trying to bring up the Jeffrey Epstein hoax again because they'll do anything at all to deflect on how badly they've done on the shutdown and so many other subjects. Only a very bad or stupid Republican would fall into the trap. The Democrats cost our country $1.5 trillion with their recent antics of viciously closing our country, while at the same time putting many at risk, and they should pay a fair price. There should be no deflections to Epstein or anything else. And again, he is not doing himself any favors with this approach to the Epstein Files. He actually wound up very likely permanently losing at least 5% of the independent vote back in May, according to Rasmussen reports, when he first initially took this stance on the Epstein Files, calling it a hoax. And surprise, surprise, look which two people have been very outspoken about releasing the Epstein Files and haven't gone along with the Trump narrative on them being a hoax. Turns out that's Thomas Massey and Marjorie Taylor Greene, both of whom aren't funded by AIPAC at all, both of whom aren't afraid to necessarily criticize the president when they see fit, and now both of whom are demanding the release of the Epstein Files, and I'd say even leading the charge to do so. And the thing is, it's worked, because now 100 Republicans are breaking off from Trump when it comes to Epstein, and they're demanding the release of all of the files. And the funniest thing is, we were gaslit since May on these files. We were told confidently by Trump and his DOJ that these files didn't exist. That's what they said. They never existed. This was just some guy on an island and he was a sicko. That's all that this was. There was no client list. There were no files, none of that stuff. All that was on Pam Bondi's desk was just a phone book. And the funniest thing is, now they've shattered the trust of the American public when it comes to the DOJ. I don't think you can ever regain that. And Trump is now putting out Truth Social posts like this. Now that the Democrats are using the Epstein hoax involving Democrats, not Republicans, to try and deflect from their disastrous shutdown and all of their other failures, I will be asking Attorney General Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice, together with our great patriots at the FBI, to investigate Jeffrey Epstein's involvement and relationship with Bill Clinton, Larry Summers, Reid Hoffman, J.P. Morgan, Chase, and many other people and institutions to determine what was going on with them and him. Now, why in the hell did it take all of this to get Trump to say, fine, we'll send the FBI in and have them investigate the list that we told you just 6 months ago didn't exist? That's what I mean by trust and faith in the Trump DOJ has been shattered. It's like, oh, okay, I guess now that we're backed into a corner from the truth, mind you, the truth that literally was always going to be let out. You cannot contain the truth like this. And I've made several videos on this channel criticizing Trump's stance on Epstein, warning him that the truth could not be contained. Now that it's out, now that it's going to be forced out in the worst looking way possible for President Trump and his administration, now you want to sick Pam Bondi, your incompetent attorney general, on people like Bill Clinton? What result do you think that's going to obtain? I put out this tweet regarding Trump's Truth Social post about this right here. We're quickly approaching 300 days since Pam Bondi was appointed as Attorney General for President Trump. 0 major arrests. And now that 100 Republicans are finally breaking off from Trump and saying they're going to release the Epstein files that Pam and Trump said doesn't exist, now Trump has ordered her to investigate the names on there like Bill Clinton, J.P. Morgan, Chase, etc. When you apply just 60 seconds of critical thinking into this entire scenario, you begin to understand that the entire Trump DOJ has just shattered the general public's faith and trust in them. I mean, does anyone in their right mind actually think Pam Bondi is going to have Bill Clinton brought up on charges? At the end of the day, what we're currently facing is a hell of Trump's own making, like I said earlier in this video. He has tried to deny the release of the Epstein files. He's tried to apparently cover it up as a Democrat hoax. He has reversed on his stance when it comes to immigration. I mean, the things that President Trump ran on both times that got him elected were very, very simple. He ran on America first. He ran on immigrations, he ran on deportations, he ran on tariffs, global trade. And on all of those, he's been wishy-washy. And yeah, the southern border is shut down. That's amazing. But the whole problem is, now you're trying to work around what you've promised us in the form of these H-1B visas, in the form of Chinese college students needing to come here to keep our universities afloat for some reason, as if half of colleges closing would be a bad thing to begin with. Woke institutes brainwashing our young minds. You want to tell me that's a bad thing that they'd close? Or at the very least have to economize? And even with the tariffs, I mean, we've seen them all over the place with these. And then just to season up this dish of disaster, you now sprinkle on this Epstein debacle that Trump has created for himself, when all he should have done and all he had to do was just let the truth have its day. I hope in part this helps explain what's going on when it comes to this MAGA Civil War. And I hope in part this actually helps you decide what side you want to be on. Let me know in the comments down below which side you're more on right now. Are you always with Trump? Are you trusting the plan? Or do you think a lot of this is Trump's fault and now it's all coming back to bite him? Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to American Advocates for more.